Okay, so hey everybody, today we've got the lower wings laid up. We have our left and right lower wing. Once we're to that to the point of installation, these will be infilled and sanded smooth like the fuselage, prepped for paint. And these box-like structures here will be infilled and sanded and reduced to fit through the openings in the side of the fuselage. Once they are completely assembled each side, I'll sand a bevel into this edge. There'll be a piece like this will be fitted here. These will be infilled, and then I will sand just a slight bevel, just enough to give us our 1/4 inch dihedral. So the lower wing will have just the slightest dihedral. The upper wing will be constructed flat, and we'll have our biplane structure. So the way infill is done, the way I do it anyway, it's pretty basic. So we buy our sheet balsa 3/32 thick. Typically I match the thickness of the stringers. Sometimes these airplanes are built light with 1/16 stringers. Sometimes I'll hog that out and make that 1/8 inch or 3/16. And then we use a 3/32 filler. Did I say 3/16? 3/32 on the stringer, or 1/16 or 1/8 inch. Any of those will work. And the idea is to infill with enough thickness here that we can sand into this shape and get our true airfoil. You see the way this went together. It's not real pretty. We've got some gaps here at the leading edge. So infill will take care of that, and I'll also just fill. I'll use 1/16 stringer material and just fill these gaps to make sure we get a strong bond at the leading edge there. Right, so we'll put our we'll skin these, we'll infill these, sand them to shape. Now these airfoils, a lot of these models are built just with a flat bottom airfoil. That's just for ease of construction and added stability and like rubber band light model aircraft stability in flight. This one actually they modeled the actual airfoil shape. So these are, I guess maybe you can see it in the illustration from the plan. This is a curve here instead of just being a flat. And you know, I could have just cut this when I cut out each one of these ribs. I could have just cut this in a straight line and eliminated that, but I wanted to replicate that airfoil shape on the underwing side. And I thought I would first go with the lower wing and do it, see how it is. If it's not worth the trouble, then I will, when I cut the upper ribs out off the sheet, I'll make them flat, and we'll just eliminate that airfoil on the bottom. But in the meantime, I decided to give it a shot and see how difficult that is to lay in there. All right, so the way this works, we take our sheet, and typically I'll make a straight run. So I'm going to cut this off. You see, I'm short here, but the reason for that is that as I cut each of these out, we're losing a 1/16 of an inch. In other words, there's a 1/16 inch spacer between each piece, and that should work out to where I have just about an 1/8 inch more material in this direction than I need, not less. It looks like I'll come up short, but because of all of these gaps, or these 1/16 inch spacers, that'll end up making us, giving us good coverage. So the idea is to do this with minimal waste. And so the first thing I'm going to do is cut this off at that line, and I'll just use a builder's square. You see I've already marked it right there. So we make sure we're locked in against this edge. We get a nice 90-degree angle. You want to keep everything as square as you can. If adjustments need to be made, you know, on the airplane, then that's fine. But if we start from square, we run a better chance of keeping things aligned and minimizing the number of cuts we'll make. All of these angles should be square. That's why if we start off square, we're gonna be able to fit. We're gonna be able to fit square all the way down the airplane wing. Right? That's why we do that. So we've got our line. We just cut to the line. Sometimes when you're cutting wood, you make a mark, and then you cut the line or you leave the line. You go long or you go short, depending on what you did when you measured it, and what the look was when you measured it. And we all know what that means. You're looking at this, you make your mark, but you know that maybe I was a little left or right of the mark, or maybe I was dead on. Maybe I actually nailed the mark. So if you nail the mark, you're gonna cut right through the line. You know, if you made your mark but you realized, hey, you were a hair short, you'll leave the line and go outside. If you made your mark and you realize you were a little long, you'll take the line off. You'll cut the line off. And it cuts just short of the line. So leave the line, take the line, down the line. And that's pretty much true if you're cutting lumber or whatever. Anyway, in this case it didn't matter. We're not worried about the line at this point because we're going to be cutting this in section this way. So we've made our long cut. Now we need to make sure we line up our strip. So I'm going to make a strip that'll essentially fit between these two stringers. I always infill the bottom of a wing first and right down the center, and that does two things. One, it gives our wing stability, it'll keep it from racking and twisting while I'm assembling the rest of it. So it gives strength, and it gives strength to the stringers themselves, especially if you're dealing with 16th inch, the real small stringers. You know, you start working it down here, and this one, in the meantime, I'm fitting this, and I might put a finger through and crush one of these or crack one. So the idea is to go down the middle, and at that point, now both stringers are reinforced as I've gone down the middle, and I don't have to worry about these two stringers cracking anymore. And then as soon as I have the lower center infilled, I can do the upper center, and then I'll finish the bottom wing. These two runs will be, you know, 3rd and 4th, and then 5th and 6th. And that's typically how I do it. I might do the trailing edges before the leading edges. In this case, I'll probably do leading edges first because of these. I'm concerned about the strength of this bond at the front, at the leading edge, which is it's a critical. Though every bond on here is pretty important, but that's kind of critical to get that one right. So there, we'll mark our median. We'll give our run here its width. So we just want to line up just inside of the front and forward stringer, and then we want to mark the cut. So we have that, and we mark here, and we mark here. And for that cut, it's a little bit longer than my builder square, so I use a ruler on that one. All right, there's a bit of a thick line. I probably should sharpen that pencil, huh? Okay, so we're on our mark on both ends. Secure the ruler so it doesn't slide, and make our long cut. Remember, here we're running with the grain, so that's a pretty easy cut, and it's also easy for the blade to swim. So you want to make sure you're tight to your ruler all the way down, and that the ruler's not swimming, slipping side to side. So we're a little wide here, but that's okay. It's better to be too wide than too short. I can always trim these up as I'm installing. So you see that? That's easily wide enough. Which one's wider? Maybe I've got the wrong piece. Oh yeah, I had the wrong piece. Okay, so this one actually fits a little better inside the track. So that piece is actually the fall. This is our work. Okay, so now we just go down the line. Boom, boom, boom. Line this up against the sides. Find our rib. Mark our cut. Definitely need a better mark than the pencil's giving me. So here's number one. It's going to be long. It should fit side to side. Pretty good. A little sanding. So you see that's almost a perfect fit. And as I said, we're just a little long. Let me sharpen this bad boy. Dull. Or is it the operator that's dull? Pencil's fine. I don't know. We'll find out. Yeah, anyway. Okay. So now we'll just fit it best we can, top or bottom. And when I'm doing this, I typically will mark the front. So I'm gonna shape it to fit this way. And if I don't mark it, I could be sanding it, come back and have it backwards and upside down, and then it's a never-ending sanding mission. So then we'll mark the stringer, or the stringer, to make our cut that way. And we're going to need sandpaper for this. We need to sand flush here. I'm not creating a bevel. I'm just making sure I have a straight line. And it was a little oversized, a little wide. Orient our piece again, leading edge. Hope you can see that. So now we've got to fit side to side. We just need to cut that for length. And this is how we do. So I'm going to wet this thing to get that airfoil shape. Did I cut that right? Or did that peel out of there? Yeah. Okay, let's try it again. We should have a good fit, hopefully. Yeah, there we go. See that? Drops right in. So I'm gonna, typically when I do this, I'm leaving it a little proud just to give the sandpaper area a little room to work. And that did cut in there. So when you're going with the grain, sometimes it just slips. The wood slips a little under the ruler. Well, I'll fix that up after we install it. So we need that reverse curvature in there. It's just slight, so I don't think I need to wet this. I just need to work it a little bit with my hand. So I'll probably make a time lapse of the infill, maybe, if I can get there from here. It shouldn't be a problem. I just kind of want to get a little bit of headway before I start fiddling with the camera. So I want to get a little bit of a curve into this thing to match this underwing airfoil shape that the ribs have been cut to. And this is where the bulk of that is. The other two ends of this are pretty much straight. In other words, when I do the trailing edge and the leading edge on this underwing portion, they're going to just be, these are just straight. They're not going to need to be radiused. But you see how that fits now? I don't know if you can see that the lighting in here is horrible, but see, we're following that. We're tracking that little bit of it. An airfoil there. So we get it almost flush. We leave it a little proud. Again, that's so the sandpaper has somewhere to go. And then we glue this up from the inside. Tack it in the corners so it doesn't shift while I'm doing the rest of this. CYA sets up pretty quick, and then I'll just track down the seams, fill them. And the reason you want good bonding here is that once the wing is infilled completely, I'm going to be doing a lot of sanding, a lot of shaping. And the opportunity to put your finger through one of these, if they're not bonded properly, you jam them in there and then you're starting all over. and it gets worse the further you go in paint prep. I've gotten all the way and actually put paint on a wing in final color and put my finger into one of these. So, you know, we don't want that to happen. That's why I try to be a little more careful in construction now, to make sure we get plenty of adhesive. So you see that's swimming. It's all 4 seams are pretty well gelled, and it becomes more difficult to stick a finger through this. And then as if there are any gaps like this one where the wood actually moved while I was cutting, I'll fill that with just a wedge of balsa from the scrap that I keep off here to the side during each production phase. So I'll just cut a little swedge off of this and jam it in there. The reason for that is when I come back and this thing is all infilled, but there are chinks in it like this, and when I go to fill with the spackle will squeeze through there if it's not filled with wood or adhesive or both. It'll squeeze through there and end up in here where it can break off, harden, and rattle around like a baby rattle. I'm trying not to get that. I don't want that result at all. So that's why we fill these real carefully, both to get a good seal, keep it from being jammed in there with a finger, or to keep the filler from leaking, squeezing through, and creating a problem situation afterward. All right, and that's how we're going to go. We'll just go right down the line with our strip. Boom, 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 all the way down the middle. Get this side infilled, and then come back and do the other. All right, looks like we were headed this way actually. Okay, and that's how that works. So see you later.